I just snorted a romper when the cops started smashing in my front door. A romper is the name I had for a very large line of cocaine, about the size and length of a large straw, large enough to completely numb you out, for a few minutes at least. It was Friday the 4th of June 2021, and I was watching Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man standing in my living room. I'd been on a booze and coke-fueled bender there for 3 days. 3 or 4. It was common for me to enjoy almost week-long coke benders on my own back then. Sitting on my stained blue couch, curtains drawn, lurking in the darkness, sniffing my way to oblivion as the bottles of wine piled up and a glass half full of water slowly jammed full of cigarette butts. I was only a third of the way through the movie, and it was just getting interesting when I heard crack. It was a sharp, serious sound, like solid glass that had been hit but was too thick to immediately shatter. My first thought was that a very large, possibly drunk man had somehow fallen into my door. That thought lasted about 1 second, or 1,000 heartbeats in my current state. "Police! Search warrant!" A voice shouted so loudly it sounded like it was coming from inside the house. It's hard for anyone to know exactly what they would do in the seconds before a police incursion squad raids their house. In my head, if this day ever came, I was going to have much more time. I would have hidden my drugs up the fireplace flue, where they never would have been found, and I would have snapped both my mobile phones in half. Sadly, after 3 or 4 days of numbing my brain on cocaine, my faculties were not at their sharpest. As blunt as a bowling ball. "Get rid of everything," my brain yelled. I grabbed what I could in a single motion and bolted up the stairs of my Surry Hills townhouse as the booming noise of the police battering ram continued through my locked glass door and then the wooden door behind it. I was flushing in the upstairs bathroom. Whatever I had in my hands, it didn't matter. Cash, drugs, it was all going down the toilet. I might have pressed flush twice before I heard the noise of voices inside the house and knew they'd breached. Yelling at each other as they searched every room. They'd be upstairs any second. I ditched flushing and ran to the room adjacent. It was our spare room, where my fiancée had a large movie star kind of makeup mirror, the kind surrounded by a million light bulbs. I hid my 100-kilo body behind the door. "They'll never look there." Yelling continued up the stairs, and then a bloke with a massive shield appeared, peeked around the corner and saw me. Turns out they did look there. "Get on the ground," he yelled as he threw me to the ground. "Hands behind your back." Then there were 2 of them pinning me down, knees digging into my calves. "Stay down, you fat cunt," said one of them. "You've got a tiny cock," he added. For a while, when I recalled this event, I thought he was just trying to be a dickhead. But perhaps that was just his way of letting me know that I'd been under surveillance for a while. I lay with my face touching the wooden floor, like a gazelle that had been caught by a lion. Not dead yet, but defeated. Now that the grunts had successfully subdued me, it was time to meet the thinking police. From behind the various officers in full tactical gear emerged a detective in a suit. I couldn't tell you what his name was because, let's face it, most of the time it's hard enough to remember someone's name when you meet them for the first time, let alone when you're tired, high as an albatross, and have been caught as a target of a police raid. Things were said to the effect that they were in my house to execute a search warrant, and this was all explained in a manner so polite that you almost wondered why he didn't try ringing the doorbell first. I was patted down, and 2 detectives had a peek in my underwear to check for any hidden items before I was set down on the upstairs couch and handcuffed. I was surrounded by half a dozen cops and could hear other voices and movement downstairs. Big crowd for just me, I thought. I was introduced to a welfare officer who I was told was there to ensure I was treated reasonably and that the execution of the search warrant was conducted legally. Many incidents over the years of police brutality and planting of evidence were probably the reason behind that. I thought it was a shame there wasn't as much police corruption anymore. I would have paid handsomely for the heads up.